very easy, I think, to sit there as a young person and look at a job up there and think, there's no way I can be that person or do that job. And of course you can't now, but rather than looking up the big mountain and thinking, how am I going to get up there? Just think about what individual steps you can take along the way. And you can take a winding road and a sort of varied road to get to a position where you feel you've achieved your potential. But it can be step by step, a couple of years at a time. Don't necessarily think too far ahead or worry too much about the end goal when you could just focus on the immediate goal. I'm Omar Al-Nuaimi. I'm the international CEO of Osborne Clarke. Osborne Clarke is a big international law firm. My job is really just helping to set the strategy and direction for the international firm, making sure I look after the culture and always looking at what's next, what next steps we need to take in our kind of global journey, really.
And when you say, international CEO, give us an idea of the kind of scale of the company and the different countries.
Yeah.
I know you're traveling a lot, like when we speak. So give us an idea.
So we're quite a big business. We're about 2,200 employees at the moment, and we cover 14 different countries. So we're primarily in Western Europe, but we've got a small number of people in Asia and a small number of people in the United States as well. So my job is I spend a lot of time talking to people over Zoom and Teams, but I also get to travel, which is a really nice part of the job, mainly in Europe. But I've got a week on the east coast of the US next month. I'll be in Asia later on in the year. So lots of travel and lots of people dotted all over the place.
Yeah, well, it must be an amazing experience. But tell us where it all started for you. I know that you're the son of a Welsh mother and an Iraqi father, and you had interesting childhood growing up. So give us a bit of a background.
Yeah, that's right. So my father was really brave and came to the UK on his own when he was about 16. Landed in South Wales in one of the coldest winters ever and had a total shock, I think. And he met my mother, and they got on very well, and the rest is history, as they say. But we settled in South Wales. I went to a pretty ordinary, pretty rough around the edges comprehensive school in Newport in South Wales. Lots of great experiences in many ways, quite tough in others. And what in particular, I remember the first Iraq War, which was in the late 1980s. I was sort of just becoming a teenager at that point, and it was a pretty tough time because, as you can imagine, back then there was a lot of sort of pretty shoddy news coverage of what was happening, a lot of propaganda. It didn't feel like a great time to be Iraqi, actually, particularly in a relatively insular sort of community as we were. So had some interesting times getting through that, but was really benefited from a really supportive family and supportive group of friends, and thankfully seemed to have come out of it okay.
Mm-hmm. It's a theme, though, that I know we've discussed before. Is there's when you went to Bristol, being surrounded by kind of quite privileged Bristol University, quite privileged people, and feeling a bit like an outsider. And I wonder if that was also, a hangover from some of the things that you experienced when you were a young person in school as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I really loved my time at Bristol University, but it took a lot of adjusting to. And one of the things I was quite surprised about when I got there was, at that time, again in the early 1990s, just how few people there were who'd come from a similar background to me. And I don't just mean having come from a sort of mixed heritage family, but actually having just come from a comprehensive school. And it took me a little while, I think, to find my feet in that environment and actually to feel like I deserved to be there and belong there. But once I did, and again, the common theme through all of this is having the right kind of people around me, and I had a great group of friends who recognized straight away that I was struggling with some of that stuff and helped me through it, to be honest. Once I did get through that, it soon felt like a very natural place to be. Although, at various points in my career, I also had feelings of, is this really the right environment for me? But over time, I think you just learn to find the right way to set yourself up to deal with those challenges. And it's all about just learning confidence in yourself, which does take time, but you need to really give yourself time to learn confidence and allow it to happen in some ways too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a common misconception, although there may be some truth in it, but in the kind of world of law, that anyone who's an international CEO of an international law firm probably went to private school and those kind of things and had the right connections. But obviously you're definitely an exception to that. So tell us a little bit more about like how it's been kind of connecting into that world and working your way to the position you're in now.
Yeah, of course. And I don't want to paint too bleak a picture because things are definitely changing. Whilst there's an awful lot of work still to do, we're definitely in an environment now where it actually can be beneficial when you're applying for jobs and working your way up through a career to have something different about you, and long may that continue. But I think for me it was really about finding the right place and the right culture, and I was very lucky when I joined Osborne Clarke. I had a feeling as to what kind of culture it had, but there's only so much research you can do, and it's only really when you're on the inside of an organization that you really see what it's like. But the culture of the firm is very much a meritocracy. So if you succeed and you get good results, you do well. And that's exactly how life should be in everything really, but certainly how it should be in business. And that's been the culture of the firm for the 27 years since I've been there, and it still is the culture now. And you soon realize actually that even in a sort of quite traditional industry like law, it's actually about being a really, really good, confident person who understands people dynamics, because of course, there's a lot of technical things you can learn about the academics of law and how to apply that to a business situation. But what we really do, particularly in business law, is we're just helping clients through problems. We're helping them find solutions. We're helping them manage risks. And a lot of that is actually just common sense and business savvy rather than technical black letter law. And the people who are really, really good at that stuff come from a really diverse mix of backgrounds. Some, classically educated people, some engineers, some people who are just fantastic at reading the room and reading people rather than necessarily being able to give really technical advice. So for me, it was all about finding the right culture that suited what I was good at. And I think I just found somewhere that supported me in my journey in becoming a good people person, really.
Yeah. Well, and that's definitely a part of being a leader, right? Like, maybe probably the biggest part of being a leader of a company. And to your point, it's great to hear you, an international CEO of a law firm, talking about things being, more and more positive for diverse groups or for groups that are traditionally underrepresented. And I know that you talked about your name, Omar, being actually a point of difference and a superpower in many ways, because people always remembered you. And I wonder if you have any advice if anyone's kind of concerned about name bias or things like that when they're applying for jobs in traditional spaces.
Yeah, of course. And it's definitely something I learned to use to my advantage. So I do remember there was a point quite early in my career, actually, when I was applying for training contracts just on the cusp of university and going into the industry, where there were quite a few instances of me not getting responses to letters. And often I wondered if it was perhaps, my name that was putting people off. What I found was, as I got into a job, was that when you have to do a lot of networking in this job, you have to get to know a lot of clients, a lot of potential clients and people in the market. Actually, people remembered me because they could remember my name. And in fact, sometimes I even dropped the surname, and I just used to be Omar from Osborne Clarke. And I would go to events, and there'll be people there, really senior people within clients, who would recognize me and remember me, but not remember the senior partners that I was visiting the event with, because of my name. So I started to realize that actually this is a really good differentiator, because there's nothing more important than being remembered and being remembered for what you're achieving. So there's definitely ways we can use difference to our advantage, really. And that was something that actually, whilst I found it quite difficult at the early stages of my career, I definitely found was an advantage for me later on.
Yeah. No, again, great to hear, and kind of flipping that dynamic of what people might worry about, like normally. And there are certainly, stories where people have kind of tried to use a more anglicized name or things like that, but actually, using it to advantage is great. Just in terms of like general advice for young people, let's say you were talking to, someone who maybe is in Newport, a young person now who can relate to you, and they're thinking, well, one day I'd love to end up in your position, whether that be in law or something else. What's the best mindset to approach their start of their career or, their ambitions?
I think for me, it's realizing a couple of things. You've got to be flexible and be true to what you really think you're going to enjoy spending your time doing. Because if you don't enjoy it, it's not going to work. It's quite simple. Nobody loves the world of work, but you've got to find something that gets you up in the morning, for those many, many days that you'll be working. And related to that, it's a very long career that we all have in front of us now, and for the people watching this video, probably even longer than the career I'll be having, because the pension age and the working age is getting stretched all the time. So don't be afraid to split that into chunks and see it as you could do various careers over that time, but you can also see everything as an individual step by step and not a huge mountain to climb. So it's very easy, I think, to sit there as a young person and look at a job up there and think, there's no way I can be that person or do that job. And of course you can't now, but rather than looking up the big mountain and thinking, how am I going to get up there? Just think about what individual steps you can take along the way. And you could take a winding road and a sort of varied road to get to a position where you feel you've achieved your potential. But it can be step by step, a couple of years at a time. Don't necessarily think too far ahead or worry too much about the end goal when you could just focus on the immediate goal. And I think when you put all of that together, find something you enjoy doing, do your research and find the best place that you think will fit your personality and your style to do it, because it's all about finding the firm or the business with the right culture.
Fantastic advice. Omar, thank you so much for your time speaking to us. And hopefully we'll get to speak again soon.